In an administration in which the White House wrote the purportedly independent Petraeus report about Iraq, it should come as no surprise that CNN is now confirming a TalkingPoints.com revelation that the State Department's initial report of last month's incident in which Blackwater guards were accused of killing Iraqi civilians was written by a Blackwater contractor. That does not, however, make the story any less egregious. The chairman of Blackwater, Eric Prince, today defending his private security firm, rejecting charges that his employees acted like a bunch of cowboys immune to legal prosecution while protecting State Department employees in Iraq. Mr. Prince going so far as to say he believes Blackwater has, quote, acted appropriately at all times. The chairman of the House Oversight Committee, Henry Waxman, wondering aloud whether the State Department is acting as Blackwater's enabler, especially in light of a memo released by Mr. Waxman revealing that of the 195 escalation of force incidents Blackwater has been involved in Iraq since 2005. Blackwater security forces fired first in more than 160 of them. In other words, 84% of the time. Mr. Prince admitting his forces do not need to abide by the same rules of engagement the U.S. military does.
Every time they launch on that mission, before they go in the morning, they get the mission brief, what they're going to do, who they're protecting, where they're going, the intelligence, what to be on the lookout for, where there have been particularly bad areas in the city, and the use of force continuum, those rules of engagement.
Use of force continuum, is that dictated by the Department of State?
Yes.
And you use their rules of engagement, the commonly used term?
Yes, sir.
Is that that's similar to the Department of Defense rules of engagement?
Yes, they're
all right.
They're essentially
now,
the same.
Okay, so you
well,
had,
no,
you had
Department of Defense rules for contractors. We do not have the same as a U.S. soldier at all.
Okay.
Surprise, Congressman. Let's turn to Jeremy Skahill, investigative reporter with The Nation magazine and author of Blackwater, The Rise of the World's Most Powerful Mercenary Army. Mr. Skahill, thanks again for your time tonight.
Thanks, Keith.
Give me your reaction first to this breaking news here, this idea that the first State Department report on the Blackwater shoot-up in Baghdad was written for the State Department by a Blackwater contractor named Darren Banner. I mean, this is beginning to sound like Milo Minderbinder from Catch-22, who privatized the Army.
Well, I mean, let's remember, Blackwater USA is the official mercenary company of the Bush administration. It's like an armed wing of the White House. It's headed by a politically connected guy with very close ties to the Bush administration, major campaign contributor to Republican causes and the radical religious right. Specifically about this revelation that a Blackwater operative may have written the initial State Department report, let's remember that the administration and Blackwater keep telling the American public and the world, let's let the State Department do its investigation and then make a decision. Well, what does it say if Blackwater itself is the entity that's writing its own investigation?
To these hearings today, the chairman, Mr. Prince, claiming that Blackwater has acted appropriately at all times. Given the shooting by a drunken Blackwater employee after the Christmas party 2006, that 28 Blackwater staffers in Iraq have been fired for weapons-related incidents and 25 more have been sacked for drug and alcohol violations. This is his claim of appropriately at all times. Is that impossible, if not blatantly false?
No, it's patently false. I mean, the fact is that Blackwater, for 4 years of U.S. occupation of Iraq, has been at the center of escalation of blood and violence and conflict in that country. Its misconduct has had a blowback effect on the official U.S. military forces in the country. It's had a devastating impact on Iraqi civilians who so often have lost their lives. And perhaps most importantly, it's fueled the Iraqi resistance that still haunts U.S. occupation forces to this day. I mean, more than any other private actor in the occupation of Iraq, Blackwater has had a negative impact on events on the ground. And I should say, the most negative impact is on the Iraqi civilians who suffer every day at the hands of these cowboys.
The commanding general of U.S. forces in Iraq, Lieutenant General Odierno, Ray Odierno, told an audience at the National Press Club today that the recent formation of a commission to investigate the private security contractors in Iraq, Blackwater and the other ones, was overdue. Is there conflict now between military forces in Iraq and the mercenary forces? And could the military have found that the cowboys are making it tougher for their guys to get their jobs done and keep themselves alive?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, we've been hearing consistently for years now from military commanders that forces like Blackwater are hurting the counterinsurgency effort, in the words of one commander. In fact, U.S. military officials say they've been run off the road by Blackwater contractors. Also, the fact that these guys get paid exponentially more than regular soldiers has an impact on the morale of the official duty military. And I think we're going to be hearing a lot more of that kind of commentary coming from the military. The fact that this commission was proposed by Jim Webb and Claire McCaskill, freshman senators, is a devastating commentary on the lack of action that the Congress has taken on these private forces deployed by the Bush administration.
You and I spoke last month about the other kind of killing here, the monetary killing that Blackwater has made off these extraordinary contracts in Iraq, about $1 billion thus far. He was asked about Blackwater's earnings today, and Mr. Prince replied, "We're a private company, and there's a key word there, private." Could money be ultimately how Blackwater winds up getting punished? Is there a way for us, the taxpayers, to wind up not paying off on those contracts?
Well, ultimately, I think what the Congress needs to do is what it has failed to do for 4 years, and that is to examine a system in this country where corporate profits have been intimately linked to an escalation of war and conflict. And Blackwater has been an incredible beneficiary of this system that encourages these companies to have a bigger footprint. The worse it gets in Iraq, the better for Blackwater's business.
Jeremy Skahill, the author of Blackwater. Great thanks once again for your time, sir.
Thank you, Keith.